Okay. All right. So my name is Brooke Size. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm also a functional medicine nutrition provider. That's what that IFMCP means, is Institute for Functional Medicine Certified Practitioner, and a nutrition therapist. And I love doing these classes here. I'm so glad you're all here today. Hopefully, this will be some good info for you on skin health. I'll mention this again at the end, but my practice is Evolve Wellness and Counseling. So I have a private practice in Prairie Village for couples and individual counseling, as well as functional nutrition. So, what we're going to go through today is this is an overview of the class. We will talk about how our skin ages and what are the things that affect our skin and cause aging of the skin. We'll kind of break that down to sun damage and how that causes aging, as well as other factors. And we'll talk about inside out protection and how we protect our skin from the inside out. We often talk about just avoiding the sun, right, to avoid aging, or putting sunscreen on. Not to say some of those things aren't helpful at times, but there are a lot of other things we can be doing as well to protect our skin. And we'll go through some dietary support of skin health. I'll talk through food and some supplements that can support the skin as we go into summer. This is the best time of year to do this class because we're all hopefully going to get some time to get out in the sun here in the upcoming months or outdoors. So aging of the skin occurs through two pathways. There is natural, I shouldn't say pathways, but through two different paths, right? Natural and graceful aging of the skin. We are all aging. I remember taking a class in nutrition school that was called, I think, Nutrition and Anti-Aging. And they changed it to be healthy aging because we can't really anti-age, but we can age gracefully. And then there's unnatural aging of the skin due to skin damage. Americans spend approximately, more than $13 billion annually on skin and hair care products. It's a really huge industry. There's a lot of confusing claims. There's a lot of products out there that have limited scientific evidence, and so that can be a problem. And so we're kind of going to break down, are some of those things really helpful, or what else could we be doing instead that might be more effective? So some characteristics of unnatural and accelerated skin aging are wrinkles, sagging skin, sunspots, and there may be like leathery skin. These changes can be slowed and made less severe when we protect our skin from the inside out, even if we are out in the sun. And I thought this was kind of interesting. I remember learning a lot of info about this at some point, and it was when my kids were really little. And they had, that little kid, fresh, very untouched by the sun skin. And I remember being out at the park one time early in the summer, and I was kind of watching them and waiting to put some sunscreen on. I will explain my approach to being in the sun, but it never happened for them. We were out for not too long. It was under an hour, but it never happened. Their skin looked like it hadn't been in the sun, and I had a little bit of a burn. And I just thought it was interesting in terms of my age, but also maybe in terms of what my diet had been like as a kid growing up, maybe the level of nutrients in my skin versus them, because I had gone through nutrition school before I had kids. There's a lot of factors there. I don't know for sure, but it was interesting to me to watch them be out in the sun and not have the same effect from the sun as I did. What is that about? And we're going to talk about that. So here are some causes for unnatural aging of the skin: elevated blood sugar, cigarette smoke, excessive alcohol intake, ultraviolet rays in sunlight. Oh, that was the thing I forgot to say about that story, was that I was at a brunch. It was a party. It was a brunch out at the park, and I had a mimosa. So I had sugar and a little bit of alcohol. And that's what I noticed, was that I had an effect from the sun and my kids didn't. So we'll talk about that in terms of like, how could alcohol or sugar, elevated blood sugar, affect our skin negatively? Ultraviolet rays in sunlight, trauma, hormonal imbalance can cause unnatural aging of the skin, psychological stress, and pollution. So these are all factors. We all know that one of the leading causes of unnatural or accelerated skin aging is sun damage, which is unfortunate because we are all hardwired to enjoy sunshine. It stimulates the production of vitamin D. It stimulates endorphins, which help us feel good. It regulates our circadian rhythm by influencing the production of melatonin. And so we need to be outside. We need to be connected to the sun and exposed to it to some degree, even if we're just outside under the trees enjoying it. But we want to be able to protect ourselves from the harmful effects of sunshine. So let's talk about the different types of rays we get from the sun. We have UV ultraviolet rays, which come in 3 different varieties. So we have UVC rays. UVC rays would be extremely damaging, but they don't reach the Earth's surface. So we don't have to worry about UVC. There are UVB rays from the sun, and UVB is the major cause of sunburns. So sunscreens were invented to protect the skin from UVB. So you'll see usually on sunscreen that it says UVB protection. If it says broad spectrum, then you're getting a little bit of UVA. UVB rays, this is an important point, are also what stimulate our body to produce vitamin D. And unfortunately, when we use UVB protective sunscreen, it blocks that from happening. And I want to say a disclaimer right now, which is not that I'm going to say everybody quit using sunscreen, because there may be risk factors for some of you that making sure to protect your skin and prevent UVB sun damage is really important. We all have different skin shades, right? And some people can be out in the sun longer, some cannot. So we'll talk about recommendations later, but it's just important to know that if we're assuming we're getting vitamin D from the sun, then we need to know that we won't be getting it if we're outside with UVB sun protection on all the time. It will impair that from happening. In addition, if we're getting vitamin D from the sun, if you are going outside and you're expecting to get some vitamin D from the sun and you don't have UVB protection on, it takes time for the cholesterol and the lipids in the skin to synthesize that vitamin D and absorb it. And so we don't want to go shower and soap up like for a day or so after being in the sun, which a lot of people sort of roll their eyes like, okay, how am I supposed to get vitamin D from the sun if I'm using a lot of soap because I've been outside sweating? Funny story, when my kids were young, my brother has kids the same age, and they would be in the bath together, and my kids would ask me if it was soap day. And my brother thought that was really, really weird that we didn't do soap day at every bath. Obviously, we clean the important places, but I tend to, especially in the summer, not like soap up the parts of their body that don't necessarily need soap, and just let the oils stay in their skin and rinse off any dirt and stuff like that. Which, if you think about traditionally what humans were doing, that's what we were doing, right? Jump in the lake, rinse off, get back out. And so we would better be able to absorb the vitamin D because we're not washing all the oils out of the skin is part of the problem. And it depends what sort of soap you use. There's some soaps that are not going to cut oil from the skin as much. If you're using gentler, more natural soaps, then there's more of a likelihood that you're maintaining the oil in the skin and could potentially absorb vitamin D. But that's something to be aware of. So the UVB rays account for about 5% of the rays that reach the Earth in the Northern Hemisphere. They are mostly present during the summer months between 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And that's when we would get our vitamin D. UVA. So we don't always talk a lot about UVA rays. UVA rays are the other 95% of rays that don't usually cause a sunburn, but they penetrate deeper into the skin. And they are the ones that are responsible for like some of the feel-good chemicals we get from the sun. These feel-good chemicals are made in response to visible light activating certain parts of our brains. So that also, sorry, I should say I said that wrong. Visible light, the blue, yellow, red, are responsible for the endorphins and the feel-good chemicals. So even just being exposed to windows, being outside under trees, we will be getting some of those visible, that visible light from the sun, which should help our mood, should help our mental health as well. So UVA we're going to talk more about because UVA is 95% of the UV rays we get from the sun, not so responsible for our skin color changing when we're in the sun. So it's not a visible burn, but it penetrates deeper and is very responsible for aging skin. It takes 1,000 times more UVA to burn the skin than UVB. Because of this, it's been less studied, and the protection from UVA was more ignored initially. We just protected with sunscreen against UVB. So most of us went out into the sun worried about UVB, worried about getting a sunburn, but pretty unaware of UVA being the main cause of aging. So as we've learned more about UVA, it turns out that UVA rays are present throughout the day. So they don't have the seasonal changes that we associate with clouds or pollution or time of year, time of day. And so if we ignore being exposed to UVA, we've kind of missed a piece of the puzzle. So we are going to spend a little more time talking about that today. Let's first look at the skin structure. So our skin has 3 layers. The epidermis is the top layer. Those have cells that quickly turn over and replicate. The dermis and the hypodermis are below the epidermis. The dermis has proteins that give skin its structure, blood vessels that supply the skin with nutrients and health. So the health of the dermis is really important also to how the epidermis looks on the outside. We tend to, with our eyes, right? We just see the epidermis, but the dermis is very important to what we see in the epidermis. As we study the structure of the skin, we see that the epidermis is composed mostly of cells, melanocytes. As I mentioned, it gives our skin its natural color, the tan that we see from the sun. The dermis, along with proteins, blood vessels, also has sweat glands and oil-producing glands, and that's important to the health of our skin too, that those are working well. Our production of collagen, so collagen gives skin its strength. Elastin gives it its stretchiness, its elasticness. And when those are damaged, we don't produce enough of, if our dermis is damaged and we're not producing enough collagen or elastin, we might see the formation of skin wrinkles. We might also see oil production in the skin or sweat fall below normal. That can also drop as we age. Production of oils can drop by as much as 65%, especially in unnatural aging. UVB rays account for about 40% of skin damage. and they directly cause damage to the DNA of the epidermis. They cause cells to change. UVA rays, as I mentioned, will but UVA has sometimes been referred to as the aging ray, more likely to cause aging of the skin. Sorry, trying to get my, there we go. As UVA rays hit proteins and other cell structures in the skin, they create what's known as free radicals. And free radicals are things that can damage the DNA in the cells of the skin. They can also suppress immune function. So I don't know if anybody here has ever like gone on a sunny vacation trip. Maybe you got way too much sun in a short amount of time, and then you got sick afterwards. We have a lot of our immune system in our skin, and so it is possible that ooh, that has happened. So Magda, I'm just realizing that I'm having a little issue with my power, and I'm going to try to fix that really quick. I don't know if you want to pause the recording or not, but I think it's causing my Zoom to slow just a little bit. I apologize, everybody. I'm going to move to a different spot in here, and I'm sorry about that. I've had an issue with one of my outlets, and I think it's causing a problem again. So we'll just get set up over here and continue. Okay. I just need to pull one thing so I can see it. Okay. Is that better? I could see it slowing down. Good. I can't hear you, Magda.
Oh, sorry. I said we can hear you clearly now because before it was scrambled a little bit.
Okay. Is there anything I should repeat on this slide or the last one?
No, it's fine. You can just keep going.
Okay. Okay. So with when these free radicals, so as what I was mentioning is that it kind of suppresses our immune function. We have a lot of our immune system in our skin. And so UV rays can cause both the free radicals, suppress immune function, and can damage some of the proteins in the dermis, like the collagen and elastin, which could contribute more to wrinkles or what we see with aging in skin. And then what happens is that we will also produce more inflammatory compounds due to all of that happening. And then we've got this kind of inflammatory process happening in the skin as well. If you've ever had like sun poisoning, so what that means is that I know I had this happen to me once as a teenager, and I was like really confused what was going on because I was out in the sun, and a day or two later, I didn't have a sunburn, but my skin got really red and inflamed for like a day, and that's called sun poisoning. And that is the result of what you see here. That is the result of this inflammation happening in the skin more so than a response to UVB. So usually it's a UV, maybe a combined UVB, UVA response, but definitely UVA is involved in that process. So here's just kind of showing you the UVA ray versus the UVB. UVA, we get, called the aging ray. There's not a rating system for protection, so that's something to be aware of. The SPF rating on sunscreen is only useful for measuring UVB protection, while the UVA blocking ability of sunscreen is not rated beyond it saying broad spectrum. So if you see like on your sunscreen bottle, it says broad spectrum, and then it says SPF 30, the SPF is for the UVB protection, and so that's rated. The broad spectrum just says there is some UVA protection in this product. So if you don't see broad spectrum, then it's just UVB, and it's at the SPF rating of whatever numbers on that bottle. That can be a little bit confusing. So put any questions. I should have said this at the beginning. If you have questions, put them in the chat box and Magda is tracking that and will let me know. We have UVA, more responsible, as I mentioned, penetrates to the dermis, more responsible for skin sagging and wrinkling. It can cause more cellular mutations, just like UVB. They both do that. And UVA is present year round and regardless of sunny or clouds, all of that. UVB is considered the sunburn ray. So that's where we get the sunburn from. Talked about the SPF protection system. It's more of the surface level of the skin, the epidermis. It's where we get our vitamin D. It can affect the cells of the skin negatively if we get too much. And it's mostly just what we get in the summer from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., which is why most people need to supplement vitamin D through the winter. So most people over the age of 65 have at least one sign of skin damage. Could be sagging skin, could be loss of pigmentation or sunspots, skin cancer, eczema. Most have more than one sign, and up to 90% of these changes are related to sun exposure and poor diet. So natural aging isn't apparent in the skin until the mid 50s to 60s. But unnatural aging can be detected as early as the teenage years. And so really we shouldn't see natural aging super apparently until 50s to 60s. But our standard American diet is not very good. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And so if our diet's not supporting our skin, it is very common to see aging happen much earlier than that, which would be considered unnatural aging. Natural aging results in fine wrinkles and a slow loss in skin pigmentation, whereas unnatural aging is associated more with the things we just mentioned. And also sometimes increased water loss through the skin. There might be a decreased response to injury, so less immune function in the skin. Like if we get wounds that take a long time to heal, that would also be an effect of aging of the skin. And so we'll talk a little bit more here about sunscreen. So most experts and the World Health Organization believe that people all over the world vastly underapply sunscreen. So if we're using sunscreen, first question is, are we using it properly? And on average, most sunscreen applications require about 1 ounce per application. Now, if you really think about how much an ounce of sunscreen is, a lot of those bottles are like 4 to 6 ounce bottles, which means we should only get 6 applications out of the bottle. You can raise your hand if you want, but who here has a bottle of sunscreen that lasts all summer? You don't have to answer, but I know I have. Last summer, I still had some bottles from last summer and I thought, oh no. Right? So if we're using sunscreen and we're relying on that, most likely we're not using enough and we need to use quite a bit more. If it's a 4-ounce bottle, we should be using a quarter of that bottle for one time of going out in the sun per application. On average, Americans apply only about 1/4 of the amount we're supposed to use. So it turns 40 SPF sunscreen into 10.8 SPF, right? Most sunscreens that protect from UVA lose that protection within 90 minutes. So if it's broad spectrum, we should be applying it every 90 minutes, at least. Those sunscreens don't protect from blue light very well. We'll talk about blue light a little bit more later, but that can also cause aging. So we do want to be aware of that. They're not going to protect from everything. Some sunscreens, there are a lot of chemicals used in just your conventional sunscreens. And those chemicals have the ability to create free radicals themselves. So if we're putting chemicals on our skin, we'll get the SPF protection if we're using enough, but also the chemicals can create free radical damage and cause inflammation while we're trying to stop having inflammation from the sun. So the quality of sunscreen, I'm always someone that's going to refer to natural grocers because I think they have really good, they probably do the best at choosing what products they put on the shelf and avoiding harsh chemicals in the products. So that's a good place to look at sunscreen. Other health food stores will have options. You can also look at the EWG.org, Environmental Working Group, and you can look up sunscreens and look for low toxicity sunscreens. And that means they'll have less of those chemicals in them. So that's a factor with your sunscreen. And so let's put it all into context. How much sunscreen do we need to use to properly get the effect that we're going for? I'm going to say this for a family. If there's a family of 4 at the beach for 6 hours using a 6-ounce bottle of sunscreen, 1 round of sunscreen application would use 2/3 of a bottle of sunscreen. 2/3 of that bottle would be gone just in 1 application. So if they need to do 3 rounds of sunscreen application because they're reapplying every 90 to 120 minutes, that's 2 bottles of sunscreen. And so you could be talking about taking like 3 bottles of sunscreen for 1 trip to the beach. So that's just I know you're not going to remember all those details, but it's just to remember like an ounce of sunscreen per application, reapplying every 90 to 120 minutes. And if you've gone swimming or you're sweating heavily, you probably need to apply more often. And so if you are relying on sunscreen as your protection primarily for some visit, outside, make sure you're using enough is the takeaway there. So we're going to get into what do we do nutritionally, like what are the studied nutrients that also protect our skin. But just some takeaways on this first section is that UV rays in sunlight are a major cause of accelerated or unnatural skin aging. UVA rays are always present, penetrate deeper, don't get as much protection from sunscreen with those. And that sunscreen alone is really not quite adequate for total and long-lasting UV protection. So that takes us to what else do we do? How can we protect ourselves if sunscreen is inadequate? And how did our ancestors protect themselves, right? They didn't have sunscreen and they were outside probably under the sun a lot more than most of us that are working indoors. So how were they protected and lived with low rates of skin cancer and things like that? What can we learn from them about how they protected their skin? So we're going to talk about antioxidants. This is best explained kind of by looking at the natural defenses in our skin. Our bodies produce melanin to make us more tan and reduce the risk of getting sunburns. But if we take a close look at the skin, the closer to the surface of the skin we get, and that's, as we've learned, the part that's exposed to UV rays, the more antioxidants we find. So there's rich antioxidant concentration in the surface of our skin. Both the dermis and the epidermis have higher levels of antioxidants than we even see in the hypodermis, which is that lower level. The epidermis has the highest level, though, of antioxidants. Vitamin C, vitamin E, carotenoids, among other nutrients as well, like lutein is one of the carotenoids that we see. So antioxidants are, they balance out free radicals is kind of the takeaway there. They are free radical scavengers. So when we have free radicals, antioxidants come in and essentially fix the problem. They are water soluble and fat soluble. So we have both types of antioxidants. And they also can absorb, there are certain phytochemicals in the skin that can absorb UV rays and support a healthy response to UV light. So that's pretty cool. They're present in the skin to capture and destroy any free radicals. and they absorb some of the UV to prevent damage from that UV ray. But they get used up as they work. So antioxidants like vitamin C or vitamin E sacrifice themselves to destroy free radicals. And so we need to replenish them all the time. And that's best done through supplements or consuming a nutrient dense diet. We can get antioxidants through supplements and through food, as I mentioned. But do remember that the nutrient content of our modern food is significantly less than what our ancestors ate, which is why there is also more of a place now for supplements than there used to be, because we don't hunt and gather. Like, the amount of plants that we eat is greatly reduced from what we used to eat, in terms of variety and in terms of quality. And so we'll talk about, getting those things in through our food. Food is the foundation, but there may be a place for supplementing depending on what your diet looks like. We can also get some of these things through topical creams. They are put into creams that can be used topically, or salves or things like that. In plants and in seafood, carotenoids act as a natural sunscreen. We talked about them being free radical scavengers, and carotenoids are a family of nutrients that give color to fruits and veggies, including tomatoes. So here's some foods that would be good to include this summer: tomatoes, watermelon, carrots, shrimp and salmon. It gives them their pink color. And lutein is what makes egg yolks yellow. So it's an egg yolk. In nature, they act as a protective mechanism for the plant or the animal because they provide some UV protection. So if we also have a lot of lutein in our eyes. So it also protects our eyes when we're outside as well. And our bodies shuttle carotenoids to the skin for that purpose. There's a study published in the Journal of Nutrition. I mentioned lutein. So we also have astaxanthin, lycopene, and zeaxanthin. Those are some additional carotenoids that concentrate in the skin and in the eyes. And this study that you see here looked at people consuming 16 milligrams of lycopene per day for 10 weeks, and they had a 40% reduction in sunburns. So this circles back to when I was saying that I watched my kiddos who were like eating a paleo diet for the first few years of their life, lots of vegetables, not sugar yet. Now as they grow up, it's like the world, has more of that stuff in it. So they get more of that now. But when they were little, and I observed, like, wow, they're in the sun with this fresh toddler skin and they're not getting any response from it. It was amazing. And my guess is that it had to do with their nutrition level and the concentration of nutrients in their skin, preventing that change in the UVB response. I don't know for sure, but that was kind of my guess. It's been found that oral or topical or a combination supplement of lutein and zeaxanthin support healthy aging of the skin. So you can use that topically or orally. And these things do other things, like lycopene is often known for supporting prostate health. Lutein, we think of lutein and zeaxanthin for eyes, know that that's helping skin as well. So these things have multiple areas where they can provide support. So I said we'd circle back and mention blue light. The effects of blue light are pretty understudied, but we're starting to understand more about it in recent years because of our use of technology. And you may have heard, we get blue light from screens, and we're on screens more and more and more as time goes on. And so it's getting a little bit more attention. Like, how is blue light affecting our eyes? How does it affect our circadian rhythm? And we've found that blue light has been shown to be capable of damaging mitochondria. Mitochondria are the little energy producing organelles in our cells. And so that can negatively affect our energy if we're exposed to too much blue light. Um, it also causes cellular damage and aging to the skin. So um, it kind of creates a unique type of free radical, and that can happen from the sun. It can also happen through computer screens, LED lights, and TVs as well. And so that is where, when we talk about wearing blue light blocking glasses, if we're on screens a lot, that we want to be aware of that. I just mentioned that largely because of use of technology. There's not, there are things to protect nutritionally against blue light, but in terms of protecting topically or on the outside, some of it is just being aware of how much blue light we're exposed to and kind of managing that if possible. Okay, mentioned those things. Carotenoids, so circling back to those provide double protection from blue light. And this is why they're in our eyes a lot. They absorb and filter blue light. So when we're outside, we're sitting outside, it's the middle of the day, and we've had enough lutein, we've eaten our colorful fruits and veggies, we'll have that lutein in those carotenoids in our eyes, and it will help protect us from that blue light. And it will do the same if you're at your computer too, right? So that can be an argument for fruits, veggies, and also if you want to do a lutein zeaxanthin supplement, that can be helpful. Polyphenols are another naturally occurring nutrient found in plants, and they support skin health. They also help protect our bodies from UV rays. They support the health of immune cells in the skin, and they'll help with the inflammatory process in the skin as well if we have some inflammation in the skin. There are some of them that can also, like carotenoids, absorb UV light. Polyphenols are very easily destroyed or lost in cooking. And this is a topic for another class, but sometimes we talk about how, if there's IBS or IBD or you have gut issues, it might be hard to eat raw fruits and vegetables. If you're able to eat more raw fruits and vegetables, especially as we go into the summer, then you'll more likely get higher amounts of polyphenols. If you're cooking, the lighter, low temperature and less cooking you can do, the better to maintain polyphenols. There are like some cases where cooking increases the polyphenol content, like with tomatoes and blueberries, it actually does. But with a lot of things, it kind of damages it. So that's just a thought in terms of eating your fruits and vegetables. Summer is a great time for more raw or cold food. So if you're able to do that, then you'll get more polyphenols most likely. The we'll talk a little bit more about some specific polyphenols. Pycnogenol, and this is one you would need to supplement, if you were thinking about doing some skin support supplements. Let me get on the same page here. It comes from French maritime bark, is where pycnogenol is derived from. And I'm going to share a study on this one. This was a pretty well done study. Found that when study participants consumed between 0.4 and 0.7 milligrams of pycnogenol per pound of body weight for 8 weeks, they had less sunburn and cellular damage after being outside in the sun and exposed to UVA and UVB. So that's about 100 milligrams per day. And I think that capsule is 25 milligrams. So, could take a double dose of that or increase it if you wanted the 100 milligrams a day. But that can help prevent the sunburn issue, is taking pycnogenol. Grapeseed extract has some of the same types of polyphenols, so grapeseed extract could be useful as well. Green tea. So there's a supplement picture here. just because that's taking it at a higher dose. If you're like really using that too, and you're going to be out in the sun a lot, you might want to do a supplement to get kind of a therapeutic dose. Unless you tolerate caffeine pretty well and you can drink a lot of green tea, because you would need to drink a lot of green tea to get enough. But uh, I'm also a big proponent of getting as much as possible through food. So just including some more green tea could be really helpful. And I'm going to give you some amounts here. Specifically in green tea, it's the EGCG that is the major polyphenol that's helping with skin health. This is why I say you'd have to drink a lot of green tea. A study done in 2010 found that drinking approximately 40 ounces of green tea as soon as 60 minutes prior to exposure to UVA resulted in far less damage. And so you have to drink quite a bit, or you can do like an EGCG supplement or a green tea supplement. And it looks like you could do that before going outside. So if you are going on a vacation this summer, that might be a nice preventative thing to do every morning before you're outside, is to have some EGCG. Milk thistle extract. And silymarin is the active compound in milk thistle that's been studied to block UV rays and help with a healthy inflammatory response in the skin. It's also very supportive of liver function, so that could be an added benefit if you feel like you need some liver support and you're also working on sun, protecting your skin from the inside out. Milk thistle would be a good option. So vitamin C is great for immune support. Most of us know about vitamin C. We also get vitamin C in creams or in like serums or things that can be used on skin. So I think that one is known a little bit more for supporting skin because it is put into a lot of topical products. You want the active form of vitamin C. A lot of them, you'll want ascorbic acid, especially if it's a cream or a topical. You can also get like mineral ascorbates, such as magnesium ascorbate would be a bioavailable form. Research has looked at both oral and topical vitamin C as being helpful. And what it does in terms of UV rays is it helps heal the damage that has happened. So it will help with destroying free radicals. So you can put it on, if it's in your sunscreen, there's some sunscreens that kind of include some of these things, then that's really useful. You can also take it orally. It is an important component to collagen. So if you take collagen, take vitamin C also, and you'll better utilize your collagen that you're taking and have that be helpful for supporting your skin specifically. There's also studies showing that vitamin C, topical use of vitamin C can improve the appearance of wrinkles even after they've formed. So it is something you can use to go back and help heal some of the aging in the skin. Vitamin E is another antioxidant useful for skin health. And we see a synergistic effect when we combine vitamin E and vitamin C. So together, they can provide the best ability to destroy free radicals in the skin. One is water soluble and one is fat soluble. So they complement each other nicely. And they can both be used topically or orally. One study found that people taking a supplement containing 1,000 IU of vitamin E and 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C for 8 days increased the amount of time they could spend in the sun without getting a sunburn by 20%. So that's pretty significant. Omega-3s are worth discussing. EPA and DHA are fatty acids that support balanced levels of inflammation in the skin. And this study that I have in here, 3 months of supplementing with EPA and DHA reduced skin damage in patients who are very sensitive to UV damage. So especially if you are pretty sensitive to being out in the sun, this could be a really helpful option for you. You get omega-3s in wild caught fish. You get omega-3s in grass-fed, pastured bison or beef. To get enough omega-3 from food, we usually need to be eating wild caught fish at least 3 to 4 times a week. Sometimes that's hard to do. It can be a little pricey to get wild caught fish where we live, especially in a landlocked state or states. And so it, for some people, is more cost effective to get an omega-3 and EPA DHA supplement and use that as a supplement. That might be an option. So let's talk about how diet influences skin health. There are low rates of skin cancer in Greece despite a very high exposure to solar radiation. And this is just showing you rates of skin cancer. And Greece is quite a bit lower, but there is high sun exposure there. And so let's look at the diet of Greece. Maybe there are some answers in terms of what's being eaten as to those lower rates. And we see this too through studies in how these nutrients, right? We've talked through these nutrients, and a lot of the nutrients we talked about are high in the Greek diet. There's a high intake of vegetables, olive oil, and seafood. So we see the omega-3s, we see polyphenols, we see carotenoids in all the vegetables. We also see, healthy fat is really important for our skin. We have a lot of fats and lipids in our skin. So there's olive oil there. Grass-fed lamb is a common protein. So we're getting good quality protein. There is a good ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids. And in the States, we tend to get very low 3 and high 6. And 6s are more inflammatory. And as we can see, for skin to age gracefully, we want to keep inflammation balanced and blood sugar balanced and include a high level of antioxidants. I think I've talked through most of this here. Olive oil consumption has been repeatedly shown to support good skin health too. So olive oil is a great oil for you to keep in the kitchen. Remember with olive oil to use it especially for very low heat cooking, or not cooking, like used in salad dressing or just drizzled over food. If you're using it for cooking, make sure you use low heat with that. Okay, blood sugar. Really, really a big, we can do more than one class on blood sugar. It's a big topic. So I'm not going to go into it in depth, but know that keeping blood sugar balanced is really important. How we do that through food is we make sure that our meals have fiber, fat, and protein, and our carbohydrates are complex and also portioned reasonably. So what that looks like on a plate would be like a palm-sized portion of protein, like maybe some wild caught fish, a piece of salmon. Then we have half a plate of non-starchy vegetables. Could be broccoli or asparagus or a salad, right? Cauliflower. And then we might, in terms of skin health, throw some colorful veggies in there, like some tomatoes and radishes and stuff like that. And then we have some healthy fats. So maybe we have some olive oil on the salad. And then when I say complex carbs, that means it has some fiber in it. It's from a whole food. So maybe we have some berries. Berries would provide a lot of antioxidants. Or we have some brown rice. Or we have some sweet potatoes. That would give us also some things that support skin. And we avoid the stuff we see on this slide, right? Sugar, junk food, refined carbs, soda. We're avoiding that. And what happens if we eat a lot of that stuff is our blood sugar spikes, and that spiking creates something called AGEs, advanced glycation end products. These are like sticky. Think of them, just like you would think of honey in a pan or sugar in a pan getting stuck to the edges of the pan. It sticks to proteins and other structures and alters their function in the body. So it causes a lot of inflammation, can cause damage to our cells, and it can cause aging to skin. So they're called AGEs, and we sometimes just can remember that in terms of skin, in that they do age our skin. When those affect the skin, in terms of how they affect the dermis, they attach to collagen and elastin. I think I have a picture of that. Yeah. They attach to collagen and elastin in the dermis, and it causes it to become kind of tangled and stiff. And then is going to damage it. You see, like we talked about collagen as providing structure, elastin is providing stretch. So it's going to damage it and cause wrinkles or things that we can see eventually in the epidermis. And you can see that if we have this good support system underneath the epidermis, then those cells can be lined up and healthy. But if we've got this problem happening in the lower layer of the skin, then we end up with wrinkles in the epidermis. So AGEs plus UVA rays are going to age the skin more quickly. And let me see if there's anything else I want to say on that. We're going to get free radicals from the sun. We're going to get AGEs from blood sugar being out of balance, and it's going to cause aging of the skin much faster and more problems. So a little more on supporting skin health as far as takeaways of what we can do. We can, in terms of supporting, like we've talked about some of the things we can do to protect from UV rays from the sun and protect from the inside out. With blood sugar, I talked about what you can do through diet. Also doing green tea, which both helps with exposure to the sun. It can also block the formation of AGEs and support healthy blood sugar. So green tea is a really good takeaway. If there's like one thing you take away from this class, maybe swap out some coffee for green tea on occasion, or have some iced green tea as it goes into summer, maybe some EGCG in supplement form. A nutrient that, some other nutrients that reduce age formation, vitamin C and E, which we also saw help in other ways, zinc, manganese. These are some spices you can use, ginger, or make ginger tea, cinnamon, cloves, marjoram, rosemary, tarragon. In terms of repairing age damage, alpha lipoic acid is very helpful. We usually do need to supplement that one. It's also found in blood sugar and diet supplements. I'm making sure in my mind I've covered anything else I didn't write in a slide. It is 12:52 or maybe a little past that. So let's do questions.
All right, there are a few questions. First, I have a comment because you were talking about carotenoids, and actually I had a medical DNA done, like a shameless plug. We will have medical DNA covered later, beginning of next year, because it's the latest in medical science. And what I have a deformed gene which doesn't convert the carotenoids to vitamin A. So no matter how many carrots and everything I eat, I will always have shortage of vitamin A. So I have to take it as a supplement. So that's kind of a comment.
Yes, it's a really good point, that carotenoids. So when we talk about using carotenoids for skin support, they can be used that way. But what Magda is referring to is that beta carotene.
Yeah.
Should be, which is in most of if you take a multivitamin, it's usually as beta carotene instead of as preformed vitamin A. And beta carotene, the body should be able to convert to vitamin A. The reason a lot of supplements don't put it as preformed vitamin A is because that women in childbearing age, if they get pregnant and they are taking too much vitamin A, it can cause birth
Mhm.
defects. So to
Uh,
be it tends to do that. But what you're saying is, and this happens, some people don't convert it very
mhm.
well.
And it's a fat soluble vitamin, and people can overdose on it, so it has to be taken carefully.
Mhm.
And anyway, question was about the retinol and collagen. I think you covered collagen, but I guess the retinol is popular in creams. And my question is hyaluronic acid, because I take some sort of a protein drink which has this in it. It's very popular in creams and cosmetics as of late. If you have any comment about that.
Yes. So in my quick answer, I am trying to remember exactly what that does, but it is useful for skin and it can be used internally and it can be used topically. It's found, hyaluronic acid in the body is found in eyes and joints, like it's found in the fluid. I believe it acts kind of as a lubricant.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll see it in different cosmetics. I have used it in the past, and at the time I did learn more about it. So that's kind of like what I'm remembering right now. I'd have to go back and double check specifically. I think
I,
it
I
was
forgot how it's called, but they sell it in Whole Foods in those blue packages. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like this blue, light blue colored container.
Mhm. I have found it useful. Like it seemed to really lubricate my skin. So I get kind of dry in the winter, of drier skin. And so I've used it in the winter and I found it definitely helped with like
I
moisturizing.
put it in my coffee in the morning sometimes. Yeah. And so, well, those were the questions we had. Somebody had a question about green tea, if it matters if you drink it hot or cold. I kind of took the liberty and answered no, but I said it has to be good quality green tea, not tea bags, probably, if you can elaborate on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. Oh, elaborate on that. Yeah. With green tea, like you saw with the study, you have to use quite a bit if you're really using it for that protection. Not that you don't get you get some other benefits just from drinking green tea for sure. Um, but yes, I would use quality organic is important.
Yeah.
And also as long as you tolerate, there is some caffeine in green tea, far less than coffee. So some people that can't do caffeine at all wouldn't want to do really strong green tea. But if you do, like you said, Magda, loose tea and it's organic and you have kind of like you'll get more of the nutrients.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, this was excellent. We will have Brooke back. She has done many classes with us, and we are working on more, like winter and early spring or late winter. Also, we have program coming up and on olive and olive oil, the health benefits, and also benefits of chocolates. So please watch your calendar or check our website kckpl.org. Thank you everyone for attending. And so there's another comment here. I don't know. I will stop the